Good morning. Another happy Friday, another Friday Roundup. You'll notice my silent partner here, Father Schneier, or his somewhat lifelike representation. So Father Schneier is on vacation this week. He's enjoying golfing and who knows what else. But anyway, we're happy for him that he is away, and he's still with us here in spirit, although much quieter than usual. So a couple things for you heading into the weekend. First is that we are almost ready to reopen our Adoration Chapel. I know you're thinking probably, Father, you are a broken record. We're so sick of hearing you ask us to sign up. But that's because we're so close. We have about 30 spots left that need to be filled out of over 120 or 30 spots. So we've done great, done amazing work. We just need to get to the finish line. So please, you can sign up either online, through the parish website. You'll see Adoration Chapel. I just was looking over that last night, in fact. Or you can always call Julie Lewis, and her information's in the bulletin or on the parish website. And of course, we can also, if you call the office, we can help you. But we're especially looking for those 30 or so spots during the week that have no one signed up at all, where it says two people needed. So please, if you can, sign up. It's really important, I think, really important that we begin adoration again here at Incarnate Word. So hopefully next week, next Friday, we'll give you the good news that we're green light to move ahead with that. The ProLife Bake Sale will be this weekend in the school lobby, and that'll take place Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m., and then on Sunday from 7 a.m. to 1:15 or so. Always a great cause. The proceeds support various pro-life organizations, most of them here in St. Louis, and a few national ones as well. So thank you for your support, and that will all be organized in a safe way to keep us socially distant and healthy. Let's see. Also in my bulletin column, I let you know around this time of year, we always get people that they go out to start their car after Mass or after a meeting, and their car battery is dead for some reason. So we do have in the sacristy a jump starter battery that'll help you get back on the road. You don't have to use it. We're not AAA, but we're right here. So if you are at something here at church, school, whatever, and your car doesn't start, let us know in the parish office or one of the ushers at Mass. I'll certainly be happy to help you get going again. It's undecided whether or not we'll add a 30-minute oil change to the offerings here at the parish. You know, you could come to daily Mass and have your oil changed or your brakes checked. Seems like a neat idea, but I don't know if we'll be able to pull that off. So for now, we're just helping you get your battery started if it's dead. Also this Saturday, tomorrow, there are prayers to end human trafficking, which is a huge problem, sort of a silent problem for many. I was reading, I think last week, that there are 3 or 4 times as many humans being trafficked now than there were at the height of the slave trade several hundred years ago, which is amazing because, you know, we think, wow, we've really progressed as a society. In some ways we have, but in other areas, in this issue, in some ways we've really regressed. And I think a lot of it happens because we don't even know about it, don't pay attention, and some of those people being trafficked could be at the gas station, they could be at the airport, they could be so many places that we don't know how to look or how to see those people who need our help. So the first step is always prayer, asking God to open our eyes, open our hearts, and to convert the hearts of those who really use people in this terrible way. So anyway, this Saturday from 10 to noon will be prayers to end human trafficking. Bishop Ruvatusa will be here to open with prayer and then lead the rosary, and then the prayer will end at noon. So if you want to stop in for part or all of that, we welcome that. And even if you can't join us tomorrow, please add that to your prayer intentions, that all people can have freedom and respect that they deserve. The last thing I wanted to bring up before the readings is earlier this week there was a statement, or I guess it was a video interview that Pope Francis did a couple years ago as part of a documentary that's being put together. And it seems like, from the headline, that Pope Francis says civil unions are okay, that it's another step maybe in changing the church's teaching about marriage and human sexuality. That is a little misleading, and I just wanted to say a little something about that first, because parishioners have contacted me and said, what's going on? Do I have to change what I believe? So the first point I'd make is we always need to go beyond the headlines. A lot of times headlines are put out there kind of with bold and shocking proclamations to get us to read more, to click on the article, to get our attention and hopefully draw us in. So we need to be aware of that the headline that's out there is not always the full story or even the true story. That's the first thing. Secondly, we always want to say, what's the context of the interview or of the words that the Holy Father supposedly said? What's behind that? We can't just take a sentence or a paragraph or even one interview. We have to understand, what is this dealing with, and how old is this, and is it even relevant to where we are today? A lot of times that context is key in understanding what exactly is going on. So I think we want to refrain from jumping to conclusions or just settling on whatever is fed to us in the news, or we can get the wrong impression of what the Holy Father is doing. Let's say that whatever the interview said was 100% accurate and correct. We still have to then recognize that a pope speaking in an interview is not speaking from the view of official teaching. He's not acting as the successor of St. Peter in a video interview. He's not acting what we call ex cathedra. So it's not official church teaching, what a pope says in a news interview or a documentary. That's really important for us to recognize. So it is possible. There have been times in the history of the church where church leaders, even popes, have had opinions that are in conflict, that differ from the official church teaching. And when that happens, and I pray that's not happening here, when that happens, it's very scandalous, it's very confusing to the people, to all of us who are faithful Catholics. So hopefully that's not what's going on here, but it is always possible. But even if Pope Francis did hold a personal opinion that civil unions should be recognized and promoted, not even a pope can change Catholic teaching as it relates to faith and morals. They can only clarify and deepen it. They can't suddenly go in a totally different direction. That's one of the gifts that Christ promised to his church in the gift of the Holy Spirit, that the teaching would be infallible, that the gates of the netherworld would not prevail against it. So I think we need to have peace in that protection that God has given his church. And hopefully, like I said, that's not even the case here. Hopefully it's not that at all. But even if it was, we could still have peace in the teaching of the church to be consistent as it has been for thousands of years. I do think the Pope is correct that all people, regardless of their sexual orientation, deserve to be treated with respect and charity and to be embraced by their families. It's not saying, hey, everyone should, when someone in your family does something that we view as sinful as Catholics, that we don't, disown them and kick them out. That would be a very damaging and most often very hurtful and not charitable way of doing things. But keeping in mind that no one, not even a pope, has the right or ability to redefine what a family is, what marriage is. So I think just as we continue to hopefully get clarification and better understanding of what the Holy Father is trying to say, we still want to continue to pray for all of our church leaders, especially the Holy Father. I can't imagine the responsibility that he has, and also every single word, every single interview you've given, even from years ago. I think one of the interviews was 10 years ago, how difficult that is, to be under that microscope to that level. So we continue to pray for him. And it's also an opportunity for you and I to deepen our own understanding of our Judeo-Christian values, which have grounded our church, but also Western civilization for thousands of years. We need to be able to take those. We used to be able to take those for granted, but we can't do that anymore. And you and I need to be able to articulate what and why we believe the truths of our faith. So if nothing else, this is an opportunity for all of us to learn more and understand more deeply why the church teaches what she teaches. So the readings this weekend are really interesting. The first reading deals with how to treat those who are marginalized, the foreigner, the widow, the orphan, those who many times in ancient culture were sort of half people or didn't have full rights and consideration, and really didn't have any standing in society. They were kind of just ignored and cast aside. So the first reading deals with that, of saying, if you think you're following my commandments, if you think you're worshiping me as my chosen people, but then you turn around and you treat these people as nothing, or you dishonor them, God says very explicitly, I will, he says, kill you with a sword. My wrath will come upon you. So it's good for us to say, wow, this is something God's pretty passionate about, because the consequences, he says, are really serious. And then in the gospel, we also hear about Jesus joining the love of God and the love of neighbor. You can't separate them. In order to love God, you have to love your neighbor. And if you love your neighbor without loving God, then that love for your neighbor is merely human. It doesn't rise to the level of charity, which is what we are all called to do for not just the worldly good of our neighbor, but the spiritual good as well. And even St. Paul talks about being saved from God's wrath by believing in the name of his Son and following his teaching. So we don't like to think about God's anger, God's wrath, but it's kind of right in our face this weekend. And the reason I bring that up is that God is very patient, but there are consequences when we disobey him, when we dishonor and mistreat the people who need us most in our society, but also in our families and in our parish. So I think it's sometimes a hard truth that we have to reflect on and say, God, am I using my gift of faith, even when I pray, even when I worship? Do I leave church? Do I leave my time of prayer looking for opportunities to bring your love to people that are often ignored? Or do I keep trying to be comfortable? Or do I keep trying to just be with the people that society elevates and loves and glorifies? Tough questions, especially for us who live in a culture with a lot of affluence and religious freedom. These are things that we have to be challenged on, lest we neglect those whom God is sending us. So something to think about as you enter this weekend. We can always do more. That's what I realize as a priest. If I ever think I've done enough, or that I am kind of arrived at the pinnacle of holiness, then I am very far from it, because there's always more we can do for the poor and for Christ's body, which is the church, here in our families and here in the parish community. So hope you have a wonderful weekend, and hopefully you'll see Father Schneier next week as he truly is in the flesh, rather than a paper drawing of him. Have a wonderful weekend.